Hey, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to discuss how to be assertive so that we can set boundaries in our relationships with people across the board. And what holds people back from being assertive, a critical skill that is so important if we're going to have healthy relationships. If you like this video, please like it and please subscribe to the channel so you can get notifications on all future upcoming videos. The ability to be assertive is so important because being assertive means I'm setting a boundary to my personal space. And I'm saying that I'm going to let you in, but only so far. And I'm not going to do things that I don't want to do, and definitely things I'm not comfortable with, and definitely I'm not going to do things that are going to get me into trouble. And from my experience, I've seen so many people who don't know how to be assertive, and they've got themselves into serious trouble because they don't know how to say no. You have to know how to be assertive in a healthy way. So first challenge is a lot of people don't know how to be assertive at all. And then the second challenge is some people are assertive, but they're not assertive in a healthy way. So even though they're setting a boundary, they're still ruining the relationship. And what we're going to discuss in this video is how to be assertive in a healthy way. But what I want to discuss first is why some people struggle. Why do some people struggle in being assertive? What's the struggle? Why do some people find it so difficult to be able to pull up that boundary and say, you can't enter here. This is not something I'm comfortable with. This is not something I want to do. And, you know, our relationship can only go this far. And the simple answer is, well, it comes down to self-worth. Because if you think about it, being assertive is basically, I am going to deny your request to a certain extent. I am going to make you not so happy with me because I'm going to be asking you to respect a boundary. I'm effectively saying no to someone's request. And a lot of people think that if I say no to someone, therefore they're going to be unhappy with me. And if they're unhappy with me, what does that say about me? That says I'm not a very nice person, they won't like me, and therefore if they don't like me, then my sense of value has gone down because I need other people to like me in order for me to feel that I've got worth. So in a nutshell, their self-worth is dependent upon other people. And I discuss this a lot in my self-worth course, which you can get on this YouTube channel, and how to take control of our self-worth. The one critical mistake that people make, and you can buy the book, the link is down below as well, to buy that book, the one mistake that people make when it comes to self-worth. But as long as you're putting your self-worth onto the reactions and the control of other people, we're going to find it very hard to be assertive because we're going to be constantly enslaved to other people's feelings, and we don't want to make them feel like we've made them unhappy. And by saying no in a healthy, assertive way, which we're going to learn in this video, we're going to make them unhappy, and then they're not going to necessarily like us in that moment, and that's going to make us feel bad about ourselves. So if we want to be assertive, it's not good enough just to understand how to be assertive in a healthy way, which we're going to discuss in this video. We've got to know why we struggle to be assertive. Why do we struggle to set boundaries? And if we can't set those boundaries, our relationships are going to be a nightmare. Because, if we're constantly doing things that we don't want to do, that ends up leading to resentment. Oh, I can't believe I've had to do that again. I can't believe they've asked me to do this again. I can't believe I've ended up doing something again that I didn't want to do. And God forbid, even worse, I can't believe I got myself into this mess because I just couldn't say no to this person's unhealthy request. Has got me into a lot of trouble. So the ability to be assertive is so critical if we're going to have healthy relationships. And that is the main reason why people can't be assertive, is because they are people pleasers. And anyone who's a people pleasing person is because they put their self-worth on someone else. They put their sense of worth is dependent upon someone else. They are not emotionally free. And I talk about this the whole time, that internal bank of rich emotions that we must cultivate and create and nurture and build and grow. If we don't have those emotions, and one of them is self-worth, life is going to be a nightmare. It really is. And when it comes to assertiveness, life's going to be a nightmare with our relationships. But also, we're going to end up with resentment, and we're going to end up in sticky situations that we should have avoided, that we can avoid if we know how to be assertive. But the starting place is building up the self-worth, the ability to say no. And I've taken so many people through that journey in my private clinic. Clients have come in and they got themselves into all sorts of mess within different relationships, and they don't know how to say no. First thing we explore is their self-worth. What's holding them back? And every time it's their sense of value, that they feel this need to make someone else happy so that they feel good about themselves. And once we clear that up, then we can discuss what we're going to discuss now, which is actually how can we be assertive in a healthy way? What does being assertively healthy. What does that look like? What is the healthy way to be assertive? Now, I always say there's 3 ways to be assertive, and 2 of them are very unhealthy, and there's only 1 way that is truly healthy and puts you in total control. And I'm going to discuss what those 3 things are, and we're going to start with the 2 unhealthy ones, and then we're going to go to the right way, the healthy way, the 1 way that's going to put you in total control so you can set clear boundaries, that's not going to lead you to being in sticky situations, it's not going to lead you to any resentment that you've said yes to something that you don't like. So the first unhealthy way of being assertive is not being assertive at all, which is basically saying yes every single time. It's being a people pleaser, it's being what I call a walkover. That is one side of not being healthily assertive. It's just saying yes. Just saying yes, sure, I'll do it, even though we don't want to do it. And that builds up a tremendous amount of resentment, and especially if that's in an intimate relationship or a family member or in a working environment. You don't want to feel that sense of resentment. You want to be able to have healthy boundaries so that you don't feel that horrible feeling of resentment towards someone else, because if we build up that resentment, it's going to come out in another way. There's only so many times we can say yes before we're going to explode out of this sense of anger, which is also resentment, that, oh my, you are taking liberties, but they're not taking liberties because we've actually said yes. We've only got ourselves to blame. I always say that you can ask anyone for anything, but because they have the choice to say yes or no. So it's not the person who's asking the request who's got the problem necessarily, it's the people who don't know how to set the boundaries. Because if you just say no in a healthy way, which we're going to learn in a minute, then that request can't be fulfilled. Assuming, of course, they're not putting any physical control over you and you're not in that type of situation. But assuming that we have the ability to say yes or no, it's not their problem. They're allowed to ask that request. They're allowed to ask you, can you help me out with this, extra job? Can you help me move some boxes? Can you, I don't know, whatever it might be. They have the right to ask that, but we've got to learn how to be assertive. And just saying yes is not being assertive, and that's a really unhealthy way of living life because we're not setting any boundaries. And I'm going to talk about this in a future video, how to have self-respect, how to gain self-respect. And the only way to gain self-respect from others is having self-respect for ourselves. And if we can't have respect for ourselves in setting boundaries, to know that I don't actually want to do this and I've got the ability to say no, then other people are not going to respect us. People will respect you a lot more if you set up that sign of respect. This is where my boundary is. Now, of course, with different people, there might be different levels of boundaries, but if we want people to respect us, then we have to respect ourselves. And the ability to respect ourselves is the ability to say, I'm good enough. I don't need to say yes to every single one of your requests. I can say no. So just saying yes to all requests is obviously not being healthy, and it's a really unhealthy way of living life. And that's what I call being a walkover, and it leads to terrible consequences. The other side of being assertive is just saying no. Now, sometimes that is okay. If it's a total stranger and you don't know who they are, then sometimes it's good enough to just say, no, not comfortable in doing that, sorry, can't help you. But in an important relationship, especially in an intimate relationship, and your partner or spouse or a really good friend is asking you for a request and you just say no, then what you're missing is the most crucial feeling in any relationship. And I talk about this a lot in my Intention Principle course, which is the key to all relationships, and you can see the link below to do the whole course. And that is the feeling of understanding. So when you say no to someone, they're going to not feel understood because they've obviously got a request, and by you saying no, you're just shutting them down. And that's not going to be a nice feeling that they're going to want to experience. It doesn't mean you should say yes, it just means we've got to know how to be assertive in a healthy way. So saying no and saying, how dare you ask me to do that, well, I'm not willing to do that, that's not being a walkover. That's actually called, in some situations, it's called being a bully. Now, of course, again, to an absolute stranger, saying no is okay because there's no relationship there. But in a more intimate relationship, just saying no is actually being controlling to a certain extent. It's a bullyish kind of way, and that's also going to ruin the relationship. Because if you constantly say no to someone who's asking you a request in a really close relationship, they're not going to feel that you understand their needs, and that isn't going to work. So you might be setting boundaries, but by setting those boundaries, you're actually pushing them away. We don't want to do that. We want to set boundaries but actually make us closer. And that is going to be possible when we discover the really healthy way of being assertive, which we're going to do in a minute. So I said at the beginning of the video that the problem is a lot of people don't know how to be assertive. i.e. they go to that first way, they say yes. But I also said some people do know how to be assertive and they just say no But that's also a problem, because if you constantly say no, if you constantly say no to your child, he or she's going to feel that you don't love them because you don't understand their needs. So we have to find a healthier way. And the healthier way is in between this yes and no. It's in between this yes and no. And it looks along the lines of this. And that is, before we give the answer of whether or not we're willing to deal with their request, we build what I call is understanding. So someone makes a request from you. The first thing to do is to get in touch with the emotion or the need that they are requesting. So for example, just a simple example, someone's shouting at you. Someone's shouting at you. And if you just sit there and allow them to shout at you, you're being a walkover. And if you say back to them, how dare you shout at me, what you're thinking, you're now being a bully. So that's not going to work, and they're going to feel judged. And again, the concept of judging someone breaks all relationships, which you can see in my course, The Intention Principle, the link's below. Neither of those ways work. You've got to go to the emotion. You've got to go to the understanding, the need. So someone's shouting at you, the first thing to do is say, listen, I can see that something's bothering you. I can see that you're feeling angry, or I feel that you are angry and something you're trying to tell me. That's building what I call understanding. You're drawing them in because you're understanding them on a human level. And this takes some practice, but it's so rewarding. It's a life skill that's going to serve you in every relationship, and that's going to allow you to get through to people and communicate with people in a really healthy way. I can see that something's really bothering you, and you're trying to tell me something, but I don't feel comfortable when I feel that you're angry. That's me setting a boundary. I'm saying, I can see you got a need. I can see something's going on in your world, but I don't feel comfortable in the way that you're communicating it with me. When you're a bit more calm, then come back to me, because I really want to hear what you have to say, or I'm going to give you 10 minutes just to deal with what's going on for you. I'm going to come back in 10 minutes and we'll try it again. That is being assertive in a really healthy and positive way. I can see there's a feeling going on there. I can see you got a need. However, I don't feel comfortable in discussing it or dealing with that need when you've got all this stuff going on, because I don't feel comfortable with that type of energy. Or it could be, can you help me out, packing up some boxes? Listen, I understand that you got that need to pack up some boxes and you might be stressed over it. I'd love to be able to help you, but I just can't do it now. And maybe I can't do it the whole week because I've got so much going on. But by understanding their need, you're building that feeling of understanding, which is a critical feeling in all relationships. So it could be you'll say to them, you offer a third alternative, which I'm massive on. I'm massive on third alternatives. Listen, I can see that you're stressed and you've got to get this packing done, and I really want to be able to help you, but I just can't do it now. I can help you maybe on today's, Sunday night. I can help you on Tuesday night if that's helpful for you, but I really understand this must be a really difficult time for you, but I just can't do it because I've got other personal emergencies I've got to take care of. Because if you say yes in that situation, you're going to end up resenting them, and by saying yes, you're trying to protect the relationship and get that validation, but you're actually ruining the relationship because you're going to get resentment. Even if you just say no, they're going to be like, I'm meant to be your friend, or something even more than that, and you've just said no, you've not understood my need. But by saying, I understand that you're stressed, or I can understand you've got this need to pack up the boxes, I get that. I'm really sorry, I just can't do it right now, but I can do it maybe in 2 nights' time. You don't necessarily have to add that last bit in, but if you can, then great. You're winning on every level because you're setting a boundary, you're not doing something you don't want to do, you're not doing something that's not good for you in that moment, but you're also building that core critical feeling of understanding. And understanding with the boundary is the only way to be assertive. It's the only way to be assertive. If you say yes, you're a walkover. If you say no, you miss out on the understanding and you're a bully in most relationships. The only way to be assertive is by saying, I'm going to understand you. I'm going to understand the feeling. What's the feeling that's going on for you right now? I'm going to come into your world so I can get into your place, so I can understand your request. But then I'm coming back to my world. And in my world, this is where my boundary is. And by doing that, people will respect you a lot more because you've got self-respect for yourself, that you have the ability to say no. So let's ask ourselves this question. How often do we have the ability to say no? Have we been able to express that feeling and that desire to say no? Do we struggle? Do we constantly say yes? Are we constantly saying yes to people's requests? And if so, I can always guarantee it's because you want their validation. By making them happy, it makes you feel good that you've made someone else happy, because therefore they like you, therefore you can like yourself. What's been the consequence of that? How much resentment have you built up towards other people, and maybe even towards yourself? Oh, I can't believe I've said yes again. How many of your personal plans have been ruined because you've got this feeling, this need to say yes to people's requests for your own personal validation? How much of your own personal life has been taken away? You know, God forbid, maybe in a really unhealthy way. I mean, have you got yourself into serious trouble by saying yes to things that we should really be setting a really healthy boundary to? Do we tend to say no to a lot of things, and do people tend to not respect that because we're not building that level of understanding, and people feel like we don't really understand them, even though we're setting that boundary by saying no? Just saying no, again, is not a healthy way. What's been the consequences of the way that we've been assertive up until now? And what would happen if we do it this way, the way that I always teach people to do, which is, I'm going to get to your need, I'm going to get to the emotion, and then I'm going to come back to my world. I'm going to go into your world first, what's going on for you, so we can build that feeling of understanding, and now we're in it together. But I'm going to tell you what I can do, and I'm going to tell you what I can't do. And I just wonder what will happen if you did that. And I can tell you, because I deal with this the whole time, assertiveness training, it comes into most relationship troubles. It's about setting those boundaries, but by building the understanding first. When people come up to me, they just can't believe it. They just can't believe how much of their life was out of control because they were either a yes person or a no person. And when they learn the skill set of, I'm entering your world, I'm going to understand what is your need right now, what is your emotion, and they start talking in that terminology, and then they draw back to their own personal world and set the boundary, they can't believe how much they reclaim themselves and how much better off their relationships are because they've really set healthy boundaries. So what I would suggest you do over the next week, just once, let's set a healthy boundary. Being assertive in a really healthy way. Go for their emotion. Go for their need. What is their emotion that they're experiencing? If they're highly stressed or they're highly angry or they're highly anxious and they're coming to you and it's coming across in an unhealthy way, go to the emotion. What emotion are they experiencing? Touch it in a verbal way so you can show them that you're understanding what's going on for them in their world, but then come back to your own world. And if you don't feel comfortable being with them in that moment, set the boundary. Or if they're making a request, go to the need and understand why they're asking you that request, and then come back, draw back to your own personal world and tell them whether or not you can do that right now. I apologize, I forgot to turn my phone off. Come back to your own personal world and set the boundary as to whether or not you can. Try it just once in the next 7 days, and you will feel this sense of certainty that you get to control what you do and what you don't want to do, and you will see your relationships will be far better off because there won't be any resentment because you're not saying yes to everything. Your people will respect you a lot more because you're not saying no to everything, and you're going to feel so much more in control because you are being in control, because you're building understanding and then you're setting the boundary for yourself. People will respect that so much more. And this is just the most critical aspect for all relationships and for ourselves to take control of our own personal time, the most precious commodity, because if we're just saying yes, then we're losing that commodity. And if we're saying no, we're going to lose our relationships. The only way is that middle way. Build the understanding, go to their world first, and then draw back to your personal world and set that boundary, and you will see the incredible results by being assertive in a healthy way.